So I got the file pulled up here, Veej, and we are reviewing the live podcast event. I thought it went pretty good, man. I took a head count, not including the dozen panelists we had. We had like 35 people in the audience.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. That's really cool. And again, thank you for everybody who showed up for that. And it really made it worthwhile. You know.
Yeah,
it's nothing like it's always nice to have like a good intimate gathering rather than a big bolus of people, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would have taken that too. That would have been cool.
Sure. I for me personally, I like the smaller intimate settings. So for me, this was perfect. I felt very comfortable, and that's that's key for me.
I just listened to a new podcast I'd never heard before. It's called Buffering the Vampire Slayer. They go episode by episode. Each episode of the podcast is about one episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And they've been doing this thing they call their prom, where they have meetups with their listeners. And the last meetup, the prom, was so big that one of the hosts crowd surfed from the front to the back of the room. We didn't do any crowd surfing. That's
what I want to do next time, though. So that'll be great. I'll get extra fat for it too.
Oh God, man. I think it turned out pretty good though. Listening back to everything, and I feel like everybody had a good time too.
Yeah. There, the when Mike Clay was talking, he was so far back in the audience you couldn't hear him. But luckily, we're gonna kind of go back and take care of that. We're gonna get Mike Clay's story out to you.
Yes. So here's the deal. I have I'm gonna release a full interview with Mike, but here's what I'm gonna do. We've got some stuff with Mike. I'm gonna release, like I said, probably in a week or two after this comes out. Until then. Here's basically the story that he told us.
Started, am I right?
At the podcast.
Yeah, everything actually started in my home kitchen.
You're kidding?
Used to make them. No, literally used to make them by hand, 16 hours a day. I would get this. I would cut them with so I'd roll them out, then I'd cut them with a butter knife, and I'd use a ruler to measure the portion size.
Really?
Yeah. Then I put them in a plastic Ziploc bag, and being the marketing geniuses we were, we called them the fresh protein bar. Because we were making them fresh.
Yeah,
that's all we were doing. And so it actually started, the roots are there. It started with ingredients from our pantry. Fruits, nuts, oats, protein powder, honey, molasses is how the bar got started. So it literally is close to homegrown. To this day, you met Shane French, one of our chefs.
Oh, yeah.
Literally to this day, we're making bars in our home kitchen. If we can't make it at home, it doesn't make it to the market.
No kidding.
Now, yeah, don't get me wrong. That's where our ideas start.
Okay.
So it's in the kitchen, not behind a desk or a spreadsheet or in a lab by food scientists. It's actually like I'd bake you a cake, man.
So yeah.
It starts there. Then we say, okay, this is awesome. How do we commercialize it? And then we go to our co-man and actually complete that full cycle process, but everything's still.
So that was cool. Having Josh Wade there was cool, and then having everybody on the panel was freaking awesome, man. That was
amazing.
It was sweet.
Amazing. Yeah. It was very nice of everybody to come out and do that for us, man. And it's like these are all these people that we look at Skip and Dr. Stevenson and Kalick, and I mean, it's just Austin, everybody who showed up, fucking the godfather of podcasting, Carl Lanore, giving his 2 cents. I mean, he really took the wheel there a couple of times, and I couldn't have been happier about it.
Yeah, that was awesome, man. And of course we had Sarah. You guys are going to hear it all here when we play this intro. But now that we mentioned like 80%, we should probably mention everybody else, right?
The Delfs, Hailey and Ryan.
Yeah, and Austin.
And, Austin. And man, it was just a good time, good people, good gathering. We had a lot of fun. We gave away a lot of bars, all the bars.
Yeah. Did we say Scott Stevenson and Skip, because that will round us out, I think, for everybody on the guests.
Oh yeah.
On the panelists.
On the panel. Oh yeah. No, I mentioned them first, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're the go-to, but yeah,
I wasn't listening. I was texting.
Oh yeah, that's what you get. What you get.
I'm still texting. I'm not paying any attention to what you're saying.
Well, that's why you're the best podcaster there is. You don't pay attention. You're texting. You're picking your nose. And
I don't get burnt out. That's how I keep.
Oh, this is how you keep cranking out podcasts. Yeah. Huh? You just don't pay attention to anything anyone's saying.
Yeah, just hit record and let everybody talk.
Text, playing, surf the internet while they're talking.
Yes. No, I was not texting. I'm kidding. But let's go to those intros because this is it was fun. This is really cool, man. And I started really feeling the energy once everybody started talking.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, exactly. That's like when you're a kid and you stick on a hot dog.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding Nerds, unite! Thank you for coming here. I'm your host, Vijay Puri. Along with me, as always, is Scott McNally and the rest of these fools here. Thank you all for coming.
Hey, Veej, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. So we're just going to start this off as what? What are we doing here?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think we should say that Josh Wade is sitting over there, IFBB
Josh
Pro.
Wade, IFBB
Yeah.
Pro, looking huge. Thanks for joining us, man.
Of course, man. I love it. This is my atmosphere.
There you go.
Are you getting ready for anything right now?
Yeah, I'm starting my year off with New York.
Okay,
Oh wow,
nice.
that's a big one.
You know, I've worked with John Meadows, obviously, and after Olympia, John thought my limbs were behind my torso. So we've been focused on a lot of arms and legs. So I'd love to do the Arnold maybe next year. That's kind of a bucket list item, but I didn't feel like jumping into diet would have been beneficial to me. So making the improvements, I know I'll start just like I did last year in New York, but I never miss on condition. People normally know that about me, and I will have more size. So I think it'll be a good coming out show for me. 11 weeks.
Awesome.
Hell yeah, man.
Very cool.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for coming here, man.
Oh, of course.
Much appreciated.
Yeah,
The more IFBB pros that show up, the better for us. You know.
Yes. So we should probably mention, too, to start, that I want to thank Mike Clay, best bar ever, because he's the one who put this together for us. There he is, back there. Thank you, Mike.
Handsome guy.
It's much appreciated, man. Very much appreciated. And we've got some of the new perishable bars. Skip ate like 6 of them
Yeah,
yesterday.
he's good. He's on number 8 right now.
You gotta talk on the
I
mic.
wasn't
Yeah.
even going to tell everybody that story.
You gotta talk on the mic or it's not on the podcast.
Oh, you. It doesn't matter. He doesn't want to tell the
this is gonna
story.
be-
He doesn't want to tell a story about his bowels. Okay.
And they're delicious too. I've eaten all 3 flavors. You guys are welcome to take some bars with you, try them out for yourselves and stuff. And I appreciate what you're doing because I had talked to Mike, and the conversation we had was that you had your roots. You built this off of bodybuilding, and yeah, you went mainstream so that you could actually make a living at what you're doing. But now you're able to give back something to our community and put things together like this, man. So I much appreciate that. Thank you.
We didn't want your money. You just wanted us to feed us. That's
Yeah,
it.
just bars.
Yeah.
We should probably introduce everybody. What do you
Yes,
think?
absolutely. Let's start over here.
All right, you
You
go
do it.
ahead.
You do it.
You
This is
you said you're the host.
The legendary Carl Lanore. He's been in Superhuman Radio. He's been on All Bull. Was it?
No. Off topic.
Off Topic Radio. That's right. Sorry. I said I've been following him forever, but apparently I don't know my history very well. Right. But
Off Topic was an anomaly because Aaron Singerman and I were communicating when I was doing Superhuman Radio, and I thought he had a great voice for podcasting. And so Dave Palumbo had just broken away from muscular development. He started RX Muscle, and he asked me, because I was about to produce a show for muscular development, and he said, would you produce it for RX Muscle? And I said, yes, and that's how Off Topic came about. And really, I say this humbly, but Off Topic changed podcasting for the bodybuilding community. Because
it did, absolutely.
Our show was more like Howard Stern meets bodybuilding. I mean, I interviewed Iris Kyle. I didn't want to know how she trained. I want to know, is this a family-friendly podcast?
you can swear. We're
I
good.
wanted
We're
to
good.
know if
We're
she
good.
liked
We're good.
anal sex. I wanted to know if
Yeah.
she dated white guys. And I met her the next year at the Olympia, and she came up and she hugged me, and she said, that was the best interview I ever did.
Hell yeah. Good.
I'm sorry. You have somebody has children here. I'm really sorry.
That's right.
Oh, thank you. Man, I just felt like a real jerk. But, and actually Off Topic was cathartic for me because I was going through a horrible divorce, and it gave me a chance to talk about it. And when you go through life crises and you're all by yourself, it's heavier. But when you have it to share with other people, it gets lighter. And it was really a wonderful opportunity. We did 100 episodes. Each one of them was 3 hours, and we streamed them live. This was before anybody was...
That was before it was
yeah,
cool.
because we had people on the forums on GetBig.com and on RX Muscle and all these forums, and they were posting live, and we had people reading the posts, and we were talking about them on the air and giving shout-outs. And so, it was an accident, but I look back at it, and I think it's some of my best work because I literally bled for the audience every time we got on the air because my life sucked so bad. It was just amazing. But yeah, and I actually like that show better than Superhuman Radio, because Superhuman Radio is all science based, and I actually just got to be a schmuck on that show and just have fun.
That's what we do. We have a good time. Always. Yeah.
So, thank you for acknowledging.
Thank you for joining us, Carl. Okay. And of course, we have Sarah DeBruce from Rough, Rugged, Raw podcast.
What's up?
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks for all this too. This is great.
What?
You guys and Mike Davies helped put the stuff up here.
No, I did put the idea in Scott's head that we didn't need to do Saturday morning cartoons.
And what was that? Because like your Saturday morning cartoons are like a slightly different generation than mine. I'm a little
like,
older.
You got like all the cartoon characters. They all got together on the same cartoon on Saturday morning cartoons.
Yes.
It's like The Amazing Friends or something like
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the super podcast. I like this.
This is fun. I hope we don't bore you guys. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, but I can't say enough about Scott and Vijay. They helped get our podcast started. I was just a fan of podcasting, and I have a coach that happens to have a lot of stories. He had told me one day a story about his interaction with the Kelly Ryan, Craig Titus.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
And it was long before we had the podcast, right? So he's telling me the story, and I'm like, he's like, yeah, the investigators called me, like before anyone knew, before the story broke, because his client was staying in a house that Craig and Kelly owns, whatever, because he has a fitness client out there. They were living there, and she was living in their house. They had come to her house, and they were like, you have to leave. We're staying here now. They were on the run, and she was scared out of her mind. She was like, she was at the airport ready to go home. So he was somehow very involved with that. He was like, you need to go to the police right now.
No shit. Wow.
Yeah. So he told me that story, and I was like, why doesn't Mike have a podcast?
Yeah,
and that was kind of like the seed. And then we wouldn't have ever started if it wasn't for you guys. I messaged them. I sent them our first show ever, and here we are. I'm randomly like sitting next to Carl Lanore and Dave Kalick. It's weird.
And then we also have Dave Kalick decided to join us last minute. If you guys listen to the shows, you've heard Dave a bunch. I don't know how many times we've had you on now, but you've had a lot of awesome stories, and you've helped a lot of the guys that we have done interviews with. So it's been cool. Carl, I'm sure you relate to this, to be able to build relationships. See, here's the deal. Like, to be totally honest, like with podcasting, I am just, a normal person that decided, like anybody else that worked a 9-to-5 job, like, let's just do this thing with my friend Vijay. And it's growing, and it blows me away to see everybody here. And I get to build relationships with guys like Dave. So thank you for being with us, man.
What's up, guys? It's great being with the nerds once again. Speaking of cartoons, I'm an old man. I grew up, Looney Tunes and Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner.
That's not old.
I'm old. But anyway, these guys, Austin, Vijay, Scott, these guys are very passionate about what they're doing, and it's kind of cool because getting on the show with them, with any of these three guys, is it's very natural for them, and they just kind of, like, especially Scott, it flows, and Austin makes it flow, and it's kind of cool. It's funny. We all got a lot of laughs. He always makes me laugh, and of course, we're all metalheads, which is important. And,
very important. Yes.
But
you and Veej are more metalheads than I am.
Yeah, I think Austin. Very much so. Yeah, see, okay.
And Austin.
So I wish I had nerd glasses to put on, but I feel nerdy today.
You are. You're bodybuilding nerds, no question.
You're in the right spot. Yeah.
And Dr. Scott will be here soon, right?
Yeah, Dr. Scott's on his way.
Right.
My phone apparently has no more service. It's not letting me send text
service sucks here
at the moment, but he said he's on his way, so we should be seeing him soon. What do we got over here?
Who's this guy over here? This is Austin Stout, legendary bodybuilding coach. Austin, how are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Austin's from many podcasts, right? You've got 12 shows.
12. Yeah, so 2. We have the 2 that I host right now, and then the one that you guys had met me through previously that ran for a couple years.
Yeah, oh man.
So I would say, I don't know how long you have to do it to be considered a veteran, but I've got maybe 4-ish years.
That's good. The podcasting life cycle is very short, so you're a vet. I would say.
That's true. So definitely 300 or 400, 500 episodes, I'm sure, just combined of everything.
Very cool. Very cool. And then to his right, we have another legendary bodybuilding coach, Skip Hill from the Blood, Sweat, and Gear podcast, and from
formerly PED.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Jeez, Skip, hi. Thanks for joining us.
I was going to say hi to Matt Meinrod. Earlier at the Redcon booth. I haven't been able to stop by yet. Get
I
a
saw
selfie
Matt.
with him.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know.
I saw him in the
we
hall.
talked about it yesterday.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I do that. I
He
could
looks
go on
leaner.
and on about these guys, too, but I'd kind of rather talk about myself and my cat. So you guys can talk about them, I guess. I do want to say I miss S2H already. That's a fucking lie. No, I don't.
I wonder if I can call him.
I'm going to take shots at him. Yeah, I know. He wants us to call him. I'm not doing that. He could have been here.
He was serious too. He was like, you guys should like set it up so you can Skype me in. I was like, no, you should just come here. And he was
he
like,
can't
no.
because the government might have bugged the room.
Yeah.
Or could be in the bushes outside. He's a very paranoid individual.
Yeah. So Skip and I talk to S2H on a regular basis.
Take
We
shots
just
at him
realized
all day.
yesterday, like, we really don't know what he looks like. Like we know about what he looks like about as much as you guys know what
Yeah,
he
he
looks
looks like Guy Fieri. That's the only thing that I can. He looks like Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
And he's about that condition too. So if you think I'm going to go 2 hours without him being here and not just fucking destroy this guy, you're wrong. Because he's going to talk about my cat for the next 2 months anyway. So the what? Oh, you
said
no,
cat.
yeah, I know.
I thought you said cats too. I was like, you brought cats?
My
Are they in your
calves
pocket?
aren't bad.
Damn. It travels well.
Yeah, no kidding. No, I didn't bring Zuri. I know that there will be at least a couple of you disappointed. Brittany's already on me because I had a cat shirt, but the sleeves weren't tight enough. So, I mean, I think we can all relate, right? I can't wear that shirt.
little closer.
A little closer? All right. And I'm going to tell you something else. It's weird because in my office, there's nowhere near this many people. So I'm staring at my computer and the fucking wall, and
Yeah,
it's just a lot.
it's a little
different.
surreal.
Yeah.
This is very cool. Thank you for everybody for coming out
yes,
here. This is
definitely.
awesome too.
Look who walked in the back.
Uh-oh.
Look who came in. With the mohawk matching his shirt. What's up, Dr. Scott?
Dr. Scott Stevenson in the house.
We've got a seat saved for you.
World record for longest pen pal friendship.
Aw.
We are setting 15 years in a week. Who's counting though, right? Brother?
Yeah, you guys have never met in person, right?
Bro hug, no full hugs. No full hugs. No.
We need music. Like we could have cued some music
We
right
could have
there.
cued some music in the background. We'll do that for next
Yeah,
year.
like some violin stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we could do that post production.
Let's go with it.
Grab a mic there, Scott.
Oh.
You
Take
got
two.
all the mics
Yeah,
down
take
there.
Okay, thank you. Talk about homo, my goodness. What are we doing here? Yes. Do we have questions for me, or are we just trying to put me on the spot?
Oh, no, we're just putting you on the spot.
We're just introducing everybody.
This is what happens when you come in late.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, we're taking care of the dogs, of course.
Understand.
The dogs are in the
Understand.
Airbnb, so we came up in the van.
You get a pass.
Yeah, great.
Are you
Dog pass.
coming to the show tonight, or are you training with John Meadows?
I haven't heard from John, so I think we're going to go to the show.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Nice. And Sarah, do you want to mention real quick about our raffle that we're
Scott, put
What-
the microphone closer to your mouth.
Just before, actually,
Thanks, Skip.
just before we do that, we have two more. We have these are the Delfs over here. These are Hailey Delf and Ryan Delf. And this is Hailey Delf, IFBB Pro, by the way. Yeah. So there's another one of them in this room. That's pretty cool.
Amy's here.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, see, in the
Got
house.
you, girl.
So this is very cool, and they're actually both clients of mine, and they have a show of their own called The Come Up, which is on the Advices Radio Network, and it's a very cool show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm. So, 4 years ago, I was like, hey, Vijay, I want to be a bodybuilder. And he's like, all right, kid, you got a lot to learn here. And 4 years later, here we are. No, you didn't
That's
say
not what
that,
I said.
but your facial
I
expression
said
did.
you can't do this.
That's closer to the truth, yeah. And I was like, hey, fuck you, guy, I'm going to.
Yeah.
So now we're here. Okay,
I got a question for you, Ryan. So Ryan Delf, how was competing at the Arnold Amateur yesterday?
Competing at the Arnold Amateur was pretty sweet. I don't know my exact placing yet. I think I probably got about 10th.
Okay.
But yeah, this was just my second show, and I mean, I wanted to win and place higher, but yeah, it was a good experience, and I was happy with my package. I took a year off season before this show, and I added about 18 pounds of stage weight, and I was more conditioned, so I can't be upset about that. And so Vijay helped dial me in for that. And gold star. Yep. So thanks, Vijay. But yeah, it was a very well-run show. Backstage was awesome.
That was intimidating to me. I wasn't even in the show. I can only imagine how it felt competing, you know?
Yeah, it was interesting. I really enjoyed it, though, and I really liked, too, you know, a lot of times when you're pumping up backstage, you just have your band that you bring with you. They actually had dumbbells back there, so that was awesome. Yeah. And that helped a lot, and mirrors and all that for you. So.
Hey, fun fact about that, they used to, back in the day, they used to take down not just dumbbells and benches, they used to take down machines. They used to take full machines backstage. They would take equipment from the downtown location, because downtown used to be World Gym. Powerhouse now used to be World Gym. And then the gym that I manage in Worthington is a former World Gym. So they take equipment from our gym, equipment from the downtown gym, and then they'd build a way, way bigger, like, full gym backstage. Yeah. So that's kind of the light version.
Yeah, it was still legit. So that would have been awesome to see, too, though. But.
And John Meadows was the taxi driver back in the day. Like, literally, he was taxing people. Yeah, he used to do that. It was one of the things, he did that for like a decade at least, before we knew him as the Mountain Dog.
No kidding.
So, yeah, he said he's a lot of fun times driving those folks back, figuring out who's cool, who's maybe not so cool, who's stressed, who's laid back. Yeah, and he confirmed that as well, that they would do that. So I think he probably was part of the manual labor moving the machines around. So, yeah, it's all true.
Yeah, that's...
Is that how he became the Mountain Dog? When it got too snow and you just carried
he would load it on the back of his Burmese Mountain Dog, and they would drag the stuff up the hill. Yeah, that's how it happened. Yep.
That's how you build legs.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I was going to come back to Hailey and Ryan, by the way, Peach. I wasn't going to forget about them. But I heard raffle. I was like, oh, I went ADD.
We'll go raffle.
Want to tell them about the raffle?
Raffle. It's
nice
I have. Make sure if anyone didn't put their name on a piece of paper, come up here. I have more papers, but we're raffling off tickets. It's a full pack of tickets to everything. We have one pair to raffle off. So you plus one will win full raffle tickets. And then
two or
for the luncheon?
I think we could probably give away at least, we've got three. I mean, well, I guess two would be why don't we do that as a separate thing? See, we really planned this out ahead with the tickets.
Yeah, we got here like 15 minutes before you guys did, so.
But yeah, so I think we could do that as a separate thing to give away. What is it exactly, this luncheon?
Oh, the tickets for the luncheon, it's the luncheon with Arnold. And Arnold goes on Sunday, and you get to go to the luncheon and hear Arnold. And I don't know what it is beyond that. I believe that Mr. Lorimer has been there in the past.
It's a trip to Tahiti.
No.
That's on the next live episode.
That's on Scott, too.
Yeah.
I'm paying for that.
Fully all-inclusive.
All right, so guys, if you want to, please take part in the raffle. We'd love to give these tickets away. And thank you to Best Bar Ever, because they are the ones that supplied those to us.
Whoop, whoop.
So who's training here? Can I get a show of hands while you're at the Arnold Classic? Who's actually working out? Okay. Were you
guy?
That guy.
You're done. No more.
How? What did you train today, Josh?
I did cardio this morning, but I trained afterwards. Today's back.
So you can manage to get through all of this, spend the whole day at the All-Max booth, and then still have because I feel like it takes the fortitude out of me.
Nice, well played. Yeah.
Puns. It's good.
Dude, I'm driven, right? It's not motivation. I'll quote David Goggins. It's not motivation. Motivation comes and goes. To be driven is to succeed. I feel driven.
Oh, right on. Amy Landry.
I needs a mic. We need to bring him up here.
Any glute training? Amy Landry, IFBB Pro, bikini competitor. She's my glute training coach because, as you guys know, if you listen to the shows, glute training is the new cool thing. It's the new biceps, I think. And I think, so I'm learning everything I know from her. So, you squat? That's what Skip does. Skip said he doesn't do any hip thrusts.
You squat. He bought a hip thrust pad yesterday. When I told him I can get all that stuff for free anyway through Elite FTS, he had to have one.
I wanted it now.
Yeah, and I told the guy when he was buying it, he's buying it to squat. So doesn't want his traps to hurt. So
Scott, tell us about the workout we did back day.
I have a question first. Where all this glute training is maybe going? Can you foreshadow for us? Like anything that we can see on the Advices horizon in the form of glute training?
There's going to be a calendar of asses.
Okay.
And you have to guess whose ass is on.
So there's going to be 2 people buying it.
Mine's
you guys.
February, by the way.
February.
I'm waiting for December for me, so I have more time to build them up. Actually, Amy and I just shot a video. We're gonna do we did a glute training introduction video. Because here's the deal, you know, if you guys listen to the shows, then you know, I feel like, and I've seen this with a lot of people, I feel like the specific glute training stuff, I was never raised to do that. I never knew like how to do a hip thrust, and plus it's kind of like a precarious exercise to be doing in public. You know, not to mention, I just didn't know if I was going to do it right, so I never did them. And you know, I've trained for a long time, and I was still like afraid to do an exercise. So we did a video. We're going to put that out at advicesradio.com probably in another week or so, just to give people some basic tools in case they want to get specific.
You weren't in tights though, right?
No, I wore regular pants.
Hey, nothing wrong with tights here. Slow down. Okay, slow down. Little Mermaid tights doing hip thrusts. Yes, I've got a video.
Just a thumb.
Okay.
Just a thumb. I will say though, I did consider the leggings. I did consider the tights. I didn't do it though. Yeah. I feel like I made the right call now that Josh Wade just I would have felt really embarrassed right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Skip, you wear women's leggings, right?
God, I had no idea. What is the brand? What? Yeah, and it's like what Pro Bikini or something. I didn't know. It just looked like a cool design. And I wear women's leggings, tights anyway. I call them tights because that sounds less, I don't know, bad. But they have better colors, right? Do they not? They have better colors. Yeah, well, these said whatever that was down the whole pant. And she's like, oh, no one's going to notice. And I'm like, well, first they're small, so you have to stretch them out. And then it was giant. So people would have noticed, I'm sure. So, and he was trying to entice me by giving me, 50% off?
Yeah.
And I act like I'm the only one who is going to get fee. I'm sure everybody in the room was offered 50%.
Yeah, they gave us like a coupon when we walked up for $5 off. And you thought about it for like 2 minutes, and then we're just about to walk away, and the guy was like, okay, for you.
Well, I figured I'd go use that $5 over Chick-fil-A, and it worked. So I figured, what the hell?
That's a good call. That was the better call.
That's a better call.
Yeah.
So you're Mr. September in the glute calendar. What you're saying.
That's going to happen now. Get in shape.
You're probably going to get a lot of messages from people who want to be in the glute calendar, I'm guessing.
Sounds like a moneymaker. I'm sure it'll be good. So we wanted to be able to open this up to questions for you guys, anything you guys wanted to ask. I mean, we really didn't have a huge plan here. It was just an opportunity, I think, for us to all get together and hang out. I feel like it seems to me that a lot of times, even the people that really love the Arnold Classic, like I feel like what Josh said, like this is my people. This is where I feel like I'm most comfortable, where I feel like I belong. At the same time, I feel like I can get kind of overwhelmed by just the amount of people that are here, the time it takes to just walk 200 feet in the expo. It gets stressful. And so I felt like, why not do something like this where we can all just kind of have our own thing and have fun with it.
Low key, no pressure, right? Yeah, that's good.
Plus,
so we've come to the part of the show now, the live podcast, where this is the bread and butter now. This is what we kind of came here for, was just to get questions from the audience, or just questions between all of us, just kind of drum up a little more conversation.
Yes.
That we're all happy with. We all love to talk bodybuilding and all aspects of bodybuilding, which makes it a really cool experience because all 42 of us, or however many there are of us, all fans of bodybuilding. And really, any question kind of goes. It's like it didn't really matter how new you were to bodybuilding, how experienced you are to bodybuilding. None of that mattered, man. It was all equal playing field, and the guys all did a bang up job in answering some really, really great questions.
Yeah, it felt like we were just and like we got into our groove at that point. This was like, to me, what my everyday feels like, recording with everybody from home,
And this is where Scott and I keep our mouths shut.
Yeah. Yeah,
we're just directing traffic at this point. With all these personalities, big personalities and stuff. It's like you got and in podcasting, you got to know when to step back and shut your mouth and let the big boys and big girls do the talking.
Agreed.
I mean, a lot of times I was just like, oh, I have an answer, and in my head I was just like, will you shut up? Dr. Stevenson sitting right next to you.
Right. Just Skip Hill, 25 years, 30 years of experience.
Right. So I was just like, oh man, I just know your lane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this was great, man. This is great. This is where we kind of kick it off with all the questions. This is great stuff right here.
Yeah, you can say that for sure.
All
You
right,
can.
cool.
Yeah.
Poop
I've never
balls
been called that
fast.
before. That's pretty cool.
That works. Okay, so in regards to either yourself with personal experience or even with clients, what is, in regards to gear and usage, what is one thing that you guys wish that you would have done sooner or known sooner? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone's so quiet.
We're going to go. All of us are going back in the Rolodex. We're like, what? Now?
Okay. I was like,
that was a long time ago.
We got crickets.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Less is
And,
more in synergy is something to be taken advantage of. People talk about microdosing trend, things like that. Smaller amounts with a lower total dosage, but multiple things can have magical effects. But if adding them one at a time, so really nothing like the crazy multi-gram doses people talk about. That's something that can be done with a very small total weekly dosage.
I think it goes without saying there's a lot of abuse of compounds. These guys doing like 4 grams a week of tests and 1.5 grams a week of trend, and just these crazy fucking doses it's just astronomically like ridiculous. And I got to agree with Scott. It's like, things like trend have more, binding affinity than testosterone, and just low dosing with good combinations is really the way to go. These people that are abusing just these massive doses of stuff, they have a hard time actually getting in shape. They have stubborn fat loss, blood pressure issues, inflammation issues. And again, just a good combination of things and low protocols is the way to go for the obvious reasons, for health. And just, your look on stage and stuff. I think if you can control the volume of stuff that's being used, you're going to be a lot better off.
Awesome.
Yeah, just to add to that, kind of what Scott said, just knowing how to use things in conjunction and not necessarily just using anabolics, like understanding how to use growth hormone and insulin and things that can lower the total amount of anabolics that you might need. So you can use all these things in synergy, so you're using less of each, of each compound, and it's definitely going to give you a better result, more longevity. You don't run out of resources as quick. And to Dave's point, I mean, people, they use so much, they create so much systemic stress that they just end up looking worse, especially, in a contest prep when you're doing all kinds of cardio, you're in a deficit, you've got all these negative metabolic adaptions occurring. Like Dave said, people end up just not looking like they're in shape. They've got a film. And it's not because they're holding water. It's just because they're inflamed. Their body's stressed. Their kidneys are stressed. Their liver's stressed. So, they end up just looking worse. So get the cosmetic effect you need. And beyond that, less can be more for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think it seems counterintuitive because in this sport, we tend to go overboard on everything. When in doubt, more protein. When in doubt, train more. When in doubt, do more cardio. When in doubt, take a shit ton of gear. So, we know that it's obviously, it's logical and it makes sense, but I think that is, it just seems that, well, I'm not progressing, so I want to cover my bases, so I'm just going to take more gear. And I think that, I don't have anything to add really to what anybody's saying because I feel the same way. The less is better cliche, or take as little as you possibly can to get the best benefit. The only other thing that I can think of is, and I noticed this myself being, so old, but I went through a phase in the mid-2000s where I was on for a while. Pretty much the whole decade. Anyway, I guess, yeah. And I think what I noticed was when I did take a break, and you guys aren't going to know this guy, but I'm going to say his name anyway. Ricky Socius from Colorado who is, and you should know him. Yeah, he's the only guy to ever beat Phil Heath as an amateur. No kidding. Everybody says, "Oh, Phil was never beaten as an amateur." Technically, he lost an overall at the first Colorado State. And even Ricky said I should have never beat at that time.
What year was that?
2003.
Okay.
The Colorado State 2003. Yeah.
All right.
In fact,
on Twitter.
Phil barely beat me. I took third that year, and he was first. So I mean, you can tell how close that was, right? I don't know why anybody's laughing at that, but anyway, the point being is I was on for quite a while. And the reason that I was on was because my blood work was good and everything, and your blood work's good, you stay on. Well, that was my mentality anyway. And when I came off and I took a break, and I was able, a substantial break, and went back on, the look was completely different. And the reason I bring up Ricky Socius is because Ricky started looking kind of rough for the last couple of years that he was competing during that time. And he took a long break, and he came back, and the guy just looked incredible. And I really think that had to do with just getting off, cleaning out, and letting his body and his system rest and recover. And I remember that it had a pretty big impact on me. And, of course, when I had blood issues later and was actually, had to back off to TRT and all that sort of stuff, I went back to that thinking. So I think that's about the only thing that I can really add. I could have thrown in just take a ton of gear, but obviously that's...
Everyone does that.
Yeah, that's so 2000.
Yeah.
So to add to this, first of all, my love of building my body comes... I want to live a really long time. And there's a thin line between paying attention to longevity and throwing it all out the window for what you want to look like. And I try to balance that without hurting myself too much. But first of all, I wish the study about trend and dementia would have came out years ago because there is a linkage between development of plaque in the brain and trenbolone that you have to pay attention to, number one. Number two, I completely agree with the dosing, and I would add to it that if you have sides, you're taking too much. Once receptors are saturated, all that excess running around the body is what causes sides. Most people probably could get by with 25 milligrams of tren every other day and see results from it and not have any sides, not have any night sweats. We know this about peptides too. If you take GHRP6 and modified growth factor 1 through 29 and you immediately become ravenously hungry, you need to back your dose down because you shouldn't feel it. That's the bottom line. What's that? Yeah, and so really, I think that sensible use of drugs is very good. And as soon as you start noticing side effects, you need to back down because you're taking more than your body can actually use. The other thing is that every bodybuilder should know about the relationship of copper and iron to developing fibrotic tissue in the heart. And this is especially true of women. See, female bodybuilders who use androgens, they tend to die of heart attacks at 40 and 50 years old because of the fibrotic tissue buildup. Well, there's quite a few good studies out there that show that getting enough copper in your diet or even supplementing with copper can keep you from developing cardiomyopathy in the face of androgen use. And the relationship between iron and copper is very, very specific. A lot of us eat red meat because we want, that's a great protein source. And as you start to build up iron, copper becomes displaced and cardiomyopathy is in your future. So people who are using androgens, men and women, should be doing a few things. Donating blood regularly, and not because of hematocrit, because of iron buildup. In fact, iron is the reason we get old. And this is going to come out in about another decade. All of the, when you look at the sick aging phenotype, stiffness in muscles, degradation in soft tissue, discs start to blow out, that's all from iron overload. If you keep your ferritin and your TIBC, which is direct iron, if you keep those in the lowest percentage without becoming anemic, you're going to live a really long life and your heart's going to work better. And if you supplement and make sure you get enough copper, you will absolutely protect your heart later on in life. And that's a big one to me because everybody dies of heart disease. So if we can figure out how to keep our hearts healthy, chances are we could live a really long life.
What about, would anyone have gone back and been natural longer? I hijacked the questions.
I would have started sooner. No, really.
Thanks for the honesty, yeah.
I can add to that a little bit. Well, I want to give Vijay a shout out and all you coaches for thinking that way of like less is more. Less is more, and don't rush things. Don't take things lightly, because we turned pro without using anything, and that it was fucking hard to do. But now it's like I have I have more potential than I would have. And Ryan and I were just talking about how it's really tempting because, like, getting on the Arnold stage, you could be outmatched, but. That I just have an appreciation for that. So saying, like, would you have stayed natural longer? I think that more people should. Like, I get this question all the time just being a chick, so girls ask, like, well, what cycle should I run? I'm like, well, you're 21 and you've competed once. I don't think you should. So waiting as long as you can is the important part. Training hard as fuck and dieting the right way is more important. So, yeah.
So abstinence, basically.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Abstinence.
I think, so I've only been bodybuilding about 3 years, and I probably would have waited a little bit longer. And I don't take a lot, but, like, I remember I started a cycle of tests, it was like 250 mgs a test, and Vijay goes, whoa, what the hell did you do? And I remember he's like, you didn't think this through because I didn't even consult it with you. Do you remember that?
I do.
Yeah. And long story short, we figured it out. And so I just did a cycle of just straight tests. And then I was in the game then. And but yeah, so I would have waited another year or two. But I want to piggyback off of what all of you guys said too. Like, I've been listening to all of you on the radio for a while. And I got to give a shout out to Vijay as well. It'd be if I didn't have a coach like Vijay, it would be very tempting in the gym to listen to, the old gym rat guys saying, hey, you need to go take a gram of test, a gram of tren, whatever. I probably would have because I wouldn't have known better. But like for this show, I'm very open. I'll tell you, I prepped for this show on a TRT dose of test. I took 250 mgs of test, a tiny bit of Masteron. And like everything total, I was on 750 mgs a week. And I held my own with some of the best amateurs in the world. So, yeah, it's very tempting if I could go out there and run 2 grams of shit. That would have been awesome. And would it have helped? Maybe, probably. But like Josh Wade was talking about, I want to do this for the next 30 years, next 20 years. So I'm hoping to stick around and gradually add 1 compound at a time, maybe up the dose eventually, because you also need to add 1 compound at a time, because if you throw a whole cocktail at it, you don't even know what's working. So yeah, I would have waited a little longer, but even starting when I did, I'm glad I went little by little, and I'm still very low on what I'm taking.
When you said old gym rats, suggesting, I'm thinking the old gym rats would have said you shouldn't be doing anything, like the old gym rats that we'd be listening from.
Yeah, the old gym rats that know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
At the gym I went to, there's nobody like you guys there.
Right. There's something, and I'll just speak for myself, there's something that comes from you basically bypass a learning experience when you're enhanced, because especially if you're a good responder, because anything that you do is going to elicit gains. You can grow without thinking about it. You can train poorly, your diet can be off. So many things don't require any tweaking, any knowledge that actually obscures your ability to become a better bodybuilder in a certain way. And this is one of the things that is said many times about IFBB pros, is they can make some of the worst coaches. It's not their fault. But de facto, because they're IFBB pros, they have really good genetics. That means they didn't have to struggle with learning. You take someone, for instance, who's become a teacher, and they had a learning disability, and they had to work with people that didn't know how to learn things. They had to learn different ways of learning, different ways of teaching. That person's going to be a good teacher. Anyone had a college professor who was just off the charts genius, who couldn't connect as a teacher at all? That's the analogy I'm making there. So you bypass some of those learning experiences by doing that in a certain way, the ones specifically related to training and nutrition. Obviously, you can learn more about gear by using gear, but that's an important thing. So I know a guy, he's actually passed on now. He was a IFBB pro from New Zealand, and he gained 50 pounds in his first 6 months of training. He was a sprinter for the New Zealand Olympic team. And then he decided to go on, and he gained another 50 pounds in the next 6 months. Gained 100 pounds in his first year. He was an obsessive-compulsive personality. He was just an extremist in every single way. He was probably destined to do that no matter what. So some of it probably is not if someone nowadays wants to get on and they're going to do that no matter what. It may be a matter of the personality just dictating the path that they take. But if they want to learn, waiting as long as possible is probably going to behoove that. And look at natural competitors. Sometimes they can over-exaggerate the effects that supplements might have. They become really enamored with those, but they know a lot about training and nutrition and supplementation in ways that a lot of enhanced people simply don't. So there's some advantages, obviously.
I have a question for you, Dr. Scott.
Sure.
My name is Carl Lanore, by the way.
Yes. I think I remember you. We talked 6 months ago, something like that.
You know when you walk up to the podium and you have to give your name before you ask the president a question? So is estradiol misunderstood amongst the bodybuilding community? There's lots of good studies coming out now that are showing that men build more muscle and burn more and lose more body fat when they don't use aromatase inhibitors on an HRT dose. And when we look at cows, we know that tren plus estradiol benzoate is more anabolic than just tren by itself. But the bodybuilding community is like freaked out. No, we got to take AIs with everything. It makes you drier. Is estradiol misunderstood amongst bodybuilders?
There's an issue there of external validity of that information in TRT, and to how valid it is when you try to externalize that to somebody who's using 2 grams of testosterone.
Okay.
That's
okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So let me just couch that differently. I'm not a high aromatizer. On 2 grams of test, my estradiol was like 48.
The whole room hates you.
Yeah.
Well, no, but I could be wrong about this, but I think the darker skinned you are,
2 grams.
more melanin you have.
Only that. 2 grams or 200 milligrams?
No, I was at my peak. I was taking 2 grams of test, a gram of Deca. By the way, that backfired on me, the gram of Deca, because even with the test, I still had unwanted effects. And I worked about 400 milligrams of tren in a week with that. But getting back to this, so I'm not a high aromatizer. Bodybuilders just go, hey, you know, I'm taking a gram of test. I have to take an AI. Maybe they don't.
Yeah, some of the issues can be that if they don't know their actual testosterone levels because of the way it's measured, it's just off the charts. Yeah. Maybe they don't even want to measure that. A lot of them don't want to even know what their estradiol is, or the other estrogens as well. That's a question. I wish there were more science. This actually came up in the seminar I did with John Meadows and Eric Serrano. He had a guy who was taking, I think it was 12 grams total a week. Yeah. Yeah, I guess everywhere possible and with help of a partner. And he was he was taking an AI. He had sexual function was nothing. He came off all of that, and 4 months later he was okay. But he came off the test, so it wasn't a great case study to see what would happen if he just came off the AI. The argument, sort of from a mechanistic standpoint, is that you have you want to balance the testosterone with the estrogen
ratio
on the androgen and the estrogen receptors, in some way, shape, or form. But I don't know what you said about trenbolone and being combined with estrogen for cattle implants being anabolic. Absolutely, everything you said fits. In my mind, there's still a big black hole out there. Okay. And the best thing we have to go by, sexual side effects is a great indicator of what's going on.
Of longevity too.
I think, yeah,
absolutely.
There's so much. I mean, I'm an acupuncturist and a Chinese herbalist, and the methodologies there come from looking at tongues, doing some odd things that they figured out how to do. But you ask people questions. How do you feel? How's your GI? All these side effects. There's 100 questions you'll ask. And if someone says, I have great libido, I wake up feeling good, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, there's chances are they're pretty good. If your GI is doing well, you're doing pretty good. And if their blood work looks decent, then you're doing pretty good. As to whether you're going to grow better with or without the AI, that's going to be a matter of how diligent they are in tracking their progress. When someone's dieting down to try to get basically supraphysiologically low levels of body fat, you're going way
Yeah,
beyond.
the body's not designed to do that.
Yeah, but you're pushing the limits.
Yeah, from an evolutionary perspective, you're not supposed to do that.
No, it's absurd.
In fact, ultra leanness is the same situation, just the flip side of obesity. When you think about it, the abnormal body fat and an abnormal lack of body fat are both, from an evolutionary perspective, the body doesn't want that.
No,
it doesn't want that.
No.
And now so you mentioned the gut. I know a lot of bodybuilders have problems with their gut. Well, hormones play a role in microbial diversity in the gut now. We're learning that high estrogen levels predispose to more bacteroidetes. We know that a lot of these hormones, like oxytocin, they have microbes in the gut that they work with. And I just experimented with a peptide called LL37. I did a couple shows on it. I don't want to derail you, Austin, but LL3, every person in this room who has any kind of digestive issues, gut issues, you eat carbs and you get bloated immediately, like the Jiffy popcorn tray. LL37, a 50-day cycle of it, will change your gut forever. Will change your gut forever. I've done 2 podcasts about it. I had a guy who was a full-blown alcoholic come on my show and say after he ran LL37, he just didn't crave alcohol anymore. So anyway, good. I'm sorry, Austin.
Yeah, on the topic of the AIs, that's something that we've talked a lot about on podcasts, and you mentioned ADE ratio, so androgen to estrogen ratios, and that's because people assume, you see on your lab work it says, whatever it is, 15 to 40 or 10 to 40 or whatever the range is. Well, of course, if you take more testosterone, you're going to aromatize more. You're going to have your body's just attempting to maintain that ratio, 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 or whatever however you aromatize naturally. So just because you have a little bit more estrogen, you're a little bit out of the range, people freak out and they put themselves down in these single-digit estradiol numbers. I will say, just anecdotally, I've definitely seen people lose fat better and build muscle better, staying towards the top of the range or even a little bit above. Basically, the less manipulation of whatever they're aromatizing seems to do better. And there's other ways you can manipulate it. You don't necessarily have to just take an AI. You can change the ratios of aromatizing compounds, for example. If you're taking a gram, you can lower the test, bring in a non-aromatizing compound like a DHT or Primobolan or Masteron or something. You can balance that ADE ratio without simply taking more drugs or an ancillary drug. And the problem is, like Dr. Scott said, a lot of people don't even test their estradiol to begin with. They just take an AI and assume because they're taking testosterone that they need it. So like in Carl's case, it would be completely pointless and deleterious.
In fact, I tried taking an AI. I lost my libido, and I'm with you. Anything that improves libido is good for you. Anything that decreases libido is bad for you, because your body doesn't turn off libido unless it thinks it's in a hostile environment. Like, oh no, you can't have children right now. We're going to shut that down.
Yeah. And, the person actually that I had a long discussion with was Dr. Serrano, because I go to him as a patient, and I'm on TRT, and I tend to aromatize a little bit heavier, so I'll run about 50 to 60 on just a normal, 900 total test, 950.
Right.
And I feel great there. We leave it there. If I go any lower, I feel bad, And he says, I have patients that are 90, 100, and they feel good. They're not symptomatic of anything. They're not retaining a bunch of water, so we leave them there. They're not chronically high, obviously, but they feel good. Sexual function's good. And that's where they aromatize, and we normally leave them right within that range. So yeah, I think part of it's just the bodybuilding mentality. Like, if I can take more, hey, I got to take this. I take trends, so I take Caber. I take tests, so I take an AI. I take this. It's like I take GH, so I take T4. It's like, well, no. Have you ever actually checked your lab values and see if there's anything off? And chances are 9 times out of 10 people don't look.
And the sex component is important because we really should probably define libido and sexual performance, because I think people hear that and it's just such a vague, generalized term. So, and I'm just going to give you one perfect example. As a guy, a lot of times the estrogen level typically won't have or cause problems with an erection. You're not going to have a problem getting an erection. You're going to have a hard time finishing.
Yeah.
Like it's anticlimactic, and you're wondering what the hell's going. Your estrogen's typically in the tank if that happens. So when we talk about libido, Because great points, don't get me wrong, but I think that sexual performance, libido, I think they're generalized or vague terms, and I don't think people really know the specific. I'm hoping that at least somebody who's listening will go, oh, shit, yeah, okay, well, that makes sense. That happens to me. I didn't think about it. Good point as well, Austin, because the way people are in this sport, you're absolutely right. I take this, so I take this. It's very similar to PCT. I'm not a PCT guy. But damn it, try to get these guys to not use PCT. I'm like, they're like, why don't you? Well, I've been around for a long time. Like, we didn't do PCT. You actually learned, and I'm not knocking it. So if anybody, they're like, well, oh shit, I use PCT. That's cool. That's your. I just don't like it. I don't like it unless you absolutely need it. If you know you need it, then use it. If you don't, then just come off your shit. And if you're on long esters, they'll taper down. You'll come back online, and you don't need all. We tend to take more shit. Like, I got to take this shit because I took this shit. And I think that that's a very bad way to do shit.
Two last things that I'm going to hand you the mic. Number one, I'm in my 60s, so I grew up in an era where drugs were really cool. And part of the thing that attracted me to bodybuilding was that I got to do drugs, but I felt like they were good for me. And, I tripped a lot when I was a kid. I mean, this was just, and actually one of my favorite training songs, I think I told you this yesterday, is Bottom of a Bottle. I do it for the drugs. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention for those who have marginal issues with aromatization, the aromatase enzyme is part of the P450 cytochrome cascade. It's the precursor to aromatase is cyclooxygenase, COX-1 and COX-2. If you do things to reduce your inflammation, your conversion to estrogen will drop. Good turmeric and curcumin products, ginger, garlic. There's even some evidence that vitamin C can help reduce the production of the aromatase enzyme in the first place. So it doesn't always have to be drugs to get your estradiol levels under control. And now I'm going to hand that back to you.
Thanks, Carl.
Yeah, I think during prep, it's not like you need to have your estradiol levels zeroed out. I mean, there's some people who on TRT have astronomically high, estradiol levels, and you should be checking your blood work to gauge all this stuff. I mean, I think that, again, it should be zeroed out, but there's some people who have predisposed estrogen areas that are very stubborn if their estradiol levels are too high. And towards the end, towards the show, you do want to have estradiol come down if you really do, want to get dry. But again, it's very dependent on people. I mean, you were saying yourself, some people can be on 2 grams and not. And again, it's just so. And I guess with all this, what everyone's saying is fucking check your fucking blood work, check estradiol and look at the ratios, because that's just going to dictate, the anti-estrogen stuff like that. And again, it doesn't always have to be some people are using stuff like a gram of Arimidex every day, with letrozole. There's nothing wrong with, keep in mind that aromatase inhibitors prevent the development of estradiol. There's nothing wrong with using some tamoxifen in conjunction with that to block so that these estrogenic areas that are stubborn can actually dissipate a little bit as well. So it's not engraved in stone. You have to bang out these tremendously high doses of getting down. And again, as you're saying, anti-inflammation is key. You know what I mean? Things like zinc and everything you're saying. So it's but there's just certain levels. Again, you don't want to be zeroed out until I think towards the very end where you do want to get lower. But I mean, again, it's just looking at these ratios, and what Scott is saying is true, Dr. Scott, is that very few people actually check estradiol periodically. And
if you're a guy, it's got to be high sensitivity.
Yeah.
Because if they give you just the regular estradiol, forget about it. That number moves up.
Yeah, because it's just a snapshot in time. Because there's big fluctuations with that.
But the high sensitivity, I'm sorry, I said I was going to give it back to you. For guys, you have to tell your doctor you want a high sensitivity estradiol test, because the regular estradiol test that they use for women is really tuned in for estradiol levels above 100. And everything below that, it's flawed. You could actually be at 10 and it'll say you're at 40. The high sensitivity estradiol test looks from 0 to 100 very, very sensitively, and that's where guys are. That's where we are. So that's what you really need to ask for.
Very good point.
Yeah, and on Carl's point too, just from the inflammation side of things, that all of our hormones work in a feedback loop. It's it's not just estradiol. I get this with thyroid all the time. People get their TSH checked, right? It's a common thing. They don't look at free thyroid hormones. I see it all the time. People are chronically stressed, high inflammation. They have extremely high reverse T3. Okay, essentially their T4 looks great. They're just not converting. They're not cleaving iodine properly. They don't have enough selenium, whatever it is, and they end up with this extremely high reverse T3. And essentially all we do is correct their inflammation. And now they have high T3, low reverse T3, and they feel great. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about controlling stress and inflammation in your feedback loop, pituitary gland, your testes. All these things will do what they're supposed to do. I mean, that's what we're designed to do.
I got to ask, you guys have brought up inflammation a couple times, and for anybody who's listening, it may not even be anybody here, but anybody who's listening to the podcast, they may want to know, they may have the question, the obvious question, how do I bring down inflammation? I'm sure they hear you because you both said it. So,
What's that? Well, yeah, I'm not a big fan of metformin. I'm a big fan of rapamycin one day a week. That's a whole other story. But so if you're eating foods that don't agree with you, you're going to develop inflammation. That's the first thing. If you eat foods that make you feel like shit, don't eat them. You know, that Zantac commercial with Larry the Cable Guy, you know, when food you hate don't like you, don't eat them. You don't take a pill so you can eat shit food. Also, there's so much good information about what anti-inflammatory diets look like. And you can build muscle on an anti-inflammatory diet. You eat more salmon, you know, things like that. But reality is there are certain foods that do promote inflammation. Even if you aren't a gluten-sensitive person, gluten is a pro-inflammatory protein. And even in people who don't notice symptoms, you see their inflammatory markers go up after having like a pizza, you know? So really, you got to look at your diet first and foremost and eat good foods that don't promote inflammation. And then take supplements like curcumin. You know, these are ginger. Ginger is one of the most underestimated, unsexy supplements in the world. If you Google ginger and cancer or gingerol and cancer, you will find research that will make you go, why the fuck aren't they talking about this? I mean, they took rats and they gave them a shot that gave them tumors, and then they just put a poultice of ginger and distilled water on them, and the tumors went away in like 2 weeks. Ginger is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory, and actually it does something else. It reestablishes apoptotic landscape, because inflammation destroys apoptotic landscape. That's why it leads to cancer, because tissue doesn't die when it's supposed to, and it just morphs into this mutant shit. So take ginger, take curcumin, vitamin C. Don't be afraid of mitochondrial aberrations in vitamin C. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that I know. I know a lot of people may not like Michael Hearn, but Michael Hearn's been taking 10 grams of vitamin C a day forever, and it doesn't seem to stop him from building muscle, regardless of whether you think he's natural or not. So don't be afraid of vitamin C. Vitamin C can actually lower the production of aromatase enzyme. And zinc. So there's lots of ways to reduce inflammation.
So I have lupus and multiple sclerosis, so that's like huge inflammatory. High omega-3 with the DPA and EA.
High DHA to EPA, yeah.
I got nervous.
Right.
And black seed oil.
Yes.
Vitamin E and curcumin.
Yeah.
Like my blood profile has come back and the inflammation is.
Do you eat any grain at all? Yeah.
Skip, Skip's my coach, and he would want me to go.
Yeah, well, he's saving your life. I'll tell you that. I had a guy contact me through the show that had MS, and he had sections of his intestines removed. He had a full-blown colonoscopy, and I said to him, you know, what's your diet like? Like, wow, every meal has bread. I said, what's that about? He goes, well, I'm an attorney, and I do work for Panera, and they give me free bread. I said, look, you're going to have to stop eating bread just for 6 months. Like, it's causing the inflammation that's leading to this disorder. He couldn't do it. He said, but I love bread, and I get it for free. I said, yeah, but it's going to shorten your life. So, yeah, stay away from grains, lupus, MS, any autoimmunity, stay away from grains.
And allergy tests, too, just from, like, all of our foods and stuff.
So you know what foods to stay away from.
Yes, well, I'm an nutritionist.
And look at you. I know women that have lupus, they're like limping around the house all day long. And you know what they eat? Sugar. They gravitate to eating sugar. Their body craves sugar. That's from the gut, the microbes in their gut. LL37 you should look at.
Yeah,
yeah, please. Because I don't want to talk about this too much because the preliminary information is just starting to come in, but I had several people who have children on the spectrum that used LL37, and they're seeing personality changes in their children. And that's because if you know anybody who has autism or children on the spectrum, all those kids have they have gut problems. They eat something and they get bloated, they get diarrhea. LL37 reestablishes the landscape of the gut.
Isn't that what, is it BPC? There's the TV500 and BPC something. 157. Yeah, 157.
BPC 157 is good for the gut, but BPC 157 really is much better at healing soft tissue issues. But LL37 and another one called thymosin alpha 1. So thymosin alpha, like I had a guy, I did a show on thymosin alpha 1 last year, and I had a guy who has shingles, and as soon as the shingles came on, he did 1.5 milligram dose. The shingles went away in 2 days. Thymosin alpha 1 is a naturally occurring peptide in the body that suppresses viruses immediately. Bam, it just knocks them right out. Peptides are so exciting. They really represent the future of medicine right now, peptides.
All right, I want to open the floor back up. Anybody else have any questions that they want to throw in to start some more discussion? Anybody? Anybody?
Nice shirt.
Come on down.
Got it from Scott. Thanks, Scott.
What's your name?
My name's Jake. So my question's Chicago suburbs.
Oh, right on.
So I was just say Chicago because no one actually knows where I'm from. But my question is in regards to training and experimenting and trying new things out. So right now I'm young, 25. I'm still learning with my body what it responds to as far as growth. How long would you recommend a certain training style or changing things up to see whether or not you're getting the results that you want? Like how many weeks or pretty much like how long? Say I try lifting a different rep scheme, higher weight, lower reps. How long should I do that for before I see whether or not it's working for my body or not?
That's a good one. I feel like we have some good people on the panel here to answer that. Yeah, I'm looking at those guys down here.
As long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Ride that train years, if possible. There's one of the things, Dante Trudell, DC training, he used to harp on this. I saw it. I did, yeah, what's his name? Yeah, Dog Crap. He, you can make progress and just grind and grind and grind for years by micro-loading over time. Program hopping and switching. There's so many programs, there's so many different things that were like, well, that sounds good, or this guy's spiel sounds good. And I actually just did a talk at the seminar with John Meadows and Dr. Serrano, and I looked at basically the title was something like Unraveling the Mystery of Sets, Reps, Frequency, and Volume. Because everyone wants to know, like, what's the magic recipe to make it all happen. And it basically came down to, and the research suggests this, the same thing that Dante had been saying, is that if you look over time, an increase in performance, particular strength has been measured, is associated with increase in muscle mass. And the data are there. Not a ton of studies. They don't look at that so much. There's so much confusion as what's the best way to look at muscle growth. If you dig in on the studies, one of the things they did was looked at that Schoenfeld study. You may know about that one if you're interested in this, with the high volume idea. That if you look at that training regime, if you actually download the study and look at it, it was an impossible thing for anyone to do who trains like something other than a Girl Scout who just wants to sell cookies and not be in the gym. It was unbelievably diabolical training regime. 5 sets of squats to failure with 90 seconds rest in between. Follow that with 5 sets of leg press to failure and 90 seconds in between, 8 to 12 reps. It was just, there had to be some sandbagging there. So it probably wasn't applicable to the way that most people train. Obviously, I could go on in here. There's another study that came out just last year as well. It suggested that 5 to 10 sets to failure was best, in this case for women, who tend to recover better than men. So studies will tell you all sorts of different things. What matters is what works for you. And if you're looking at your logbook and you're seeing the growth and you're doing everything else right, and you're not looking for it out in a new training regime, you can go for years. And if you go, let's say you add every 2 weeks, you add 2 pounds to a lift. Well, that would be about 50 pounds in a year. Do that for 3 years. You've taken a 200-pound lift and made it into a 350-pound lift. That's going to manifest in your physique. Doesn't seem like much. It's like 2 pounds every 2 weeks. Like, oh my gosh, that's nothing. That's not even like the 1 1/4 pound plates. That's zilch. But you do that continuously, week after week, day after day, year after year, month after month, etc. It will manifest. So that's my biggest. It's about progressive overload in some way, shape, or form. Variety is wonderful. It has to be fun. That's the last thing I'll say. I could go on about this one, but if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're going to be motivated and you're going to train hard and you're going to like doing those things. So try to be motivated by what you're seeing in the logbook is one way to do this, and make it fun. If you need to switch because it's not fun anymore, well, then you're doing the wrong thing. But as long as you possibly can, grind it out. So that's my general thought on that.
Dr. Scott, I want to add on to his question before you put the microphone down.
Okay.
So do you think, and I kind of feel like I already know the answer, I don't know if there's any studies to back this up, but how do you feel about, he's asking about exercise selection, sets and reps. Don't you think, or what is your thought on the importance of intensity and mind-muscle connection over that for development over time versus getting hung up? I think a lot of people get hung up on exercise selection, sets, reps, don't you think? Or what are your thoughts on intensity and mind-muscle connection being king over that?
Did you know my other talk was on mind-muscle connection? That's the other one I did. Did you know that? I don't know if you knew that, but yes, that's absolutely important. So people, because of their biomechanics, because of the natural way in which their nervous system is wired, probably some epigenetics and developmental things that happen as they're getting older, they will some exercises will work well for them and some exercises won't. Everyone wants to do a flat bench press. For some people, that's nothing but an anterior deltoid and tricep builder. You can make it in that way. So mind-muscle connection, the whole idea of weight training is to hack our biology in order to produce a muscular callus in the form of a larger musculature. We've got a nervous system that's absolutely utterly set up to be efficient and economical and to do its best job of moving that weight and are getting stronger without going to the trouble of adding all that muscle mass. That's a huge energy expenditure. It's a huge architectural investment to bring more satellite cells into the muscle cells to increase their size, all that sort of thing. You can increase mitochondrial content. You can increase enzymatic content. You can train the nervous system. You can double strength in a matter of a couple months. That's a much simpler adaptation to evoke than increasing muscle mass, which we're trying to do as bodybuilders. It's really, if you look at some of the work in older folks, elderly folks who have been untrained and plus they've gotten old, you can see 200 to 300% increases in muscle strength in a matter of 2 months. A woman named Maria Fiataroni did these stuff in 90-year-olds. So the nervous system can take care of those things. So you have to be able to, we're working around that nervous system. And everything basically in Mother Nature has engineered us to find the easiest, most economical, least energy expending type of way to adapt to whatever stresses are imposed upon us. That's what evolutionary biology is about in large part. So we're trying to trick all that. So the mind-muscle connection, especially for someone who just doesn't have great genetics, who may be, quote-unquote, what I sometimes call a motor moron, they just can't feel the muscle. People who are trainers may have clients who literally they're doing a knee extension and they can tell there's pain and they're looking at their quads and they couldn't tell you if it's their quads or their hamstrings. They don't know what's actually doing the work. They'll be that disconnected from their body. That doesn't behoove good muscle growth. So, yeah, the mind-muscle connection has to be there first and foremost, and then there has to be some form of progressive overload. And the hard part, being the egotistical beings that we are, and if we're hooked on the logbook too much, is we just want to see those numbers move. And you start off with this laser-like focus on the mind-muscle connection, and then you want to get a few more reps or add a little more weight, or you look across the room and like, okay, he's benching a lot more than I am. I'm going to add a little more weight here. And then you get sloppy. Next thing you know, you've lost that mind-muscle connection. You've progressed, but that progress is no longer representative of an increase in muscle size. It's just representative of your ego and your nervous system, other adaptations that come about. So that's the hard part. And bringing up weak muscle groups is really, really, really tough to do. But yeah, you brought up those are the two things that you have to kind of balance, is making sure the target muscle is indeed the weak link in the exercise that you're trying to use to make it larger. So
I like when Scott goes first. It's just so much easier. He takes care of 95% of the answer, and I just come in and go, duh. But the other 5%, I'm going to piggyback off of one thing that he said, and that was the progressive overload. And I think it's important to note, you make a very good point that I was waiting to make. But it's a really good point, and that is there's more to progressive overload than just increasing weight and reps. And I think that a lot of people get caught up in that, especially when they would be locked into DC training. It's not the only way to grow, though it's a hell of a great way to grow. Don't get me wrong. At the same time, there are other things that you can, or other ways that you can grow without, I don't want to say the anxiety of the logbook, but when you have to come in and you know that you have to get another X amount of reps, subconsciously, you're going to find a way to do those extra reps. It may be a rep tempo that you don't know you're changing. It's a slight touch and go that might be a little bit quicker than you did. So where it seems like a very black and white way to measure progress, and it's probably one of the most black and white ways to measure, there's still a huge gray area there. So my point is just that the point about the mind-muscle connection is important, because as you start to get these subtle little differences to get those extra weight and reps, you're focused more, or we tend to focus more on that number than we do on the actual connection for the growth. And I think that that's a more important. I would rather train to failure and make sure that my recovery is great, or even time under tension sometimes, than I would to sit there after training for 35 years going, God, like, I think I ripped an ab from my rib doing that hack squat set. How in the fuck am I going to get another rep or another 10 pounds? So to me, and people like myself in my demographic, there's that component of vulnerability where isn't there a different way to continue to grow without it necessarily putting me in the position that I could either blow out my back again, or my ribs, or my abs, or something to that effect. So it's not the only way. I'm just trying to make the point that the logbook, as important as it can be, and if you're young, use it, abuse it, it's freaking awesome. But as you start to get later in age, and you start to, it's not even the age as much as the training years, I think. Exactly. You could start at 38, and if you've only been training for 5 years, you're probably not going to be anywhere near as beat up as the guy who's your same age who's been training for 20 years. So there's a lot to it. It's a good question because there's so many components.
I think a lot of people, there's too much reinvention of the wheel. A lot of people nowadays are focusing on too many fancy, trying to reinvent the wheel with new exercises, and living on the hammer strength machines and everything like that. And basically, it's basic heavy compound movements is what's going to do it. It might sound very like caveman-like, but I mean, it's basically moving a heavy object from point A to point B. And a lot of people they're just too explosive. Like a lot of times when people are doing like a leg press, they're not coming down all the way. Their IT band, hip flexor is not getting enough range of motion on the bottom. They're snapping out, resting on their knees. They're just bouncing back. There's got to be controlled negative and extreme contractions in these movements. If you're doing a hammer strength curl, if you're doing a preacher curl, you want to get a contraction in the bicep without involving your anterior delt. There should be a controlled negative on the way down. And your arms are not, to get a full range of motion, you don't have to snap your arm out where your bicep tendon is extended. It's just coming down to right before that point and coming up and getting a full contraction. If you're leg pressing, you want to make sure, again, you're getting enough depth and range of motion on the bottom, and you should be exploding out without locking out, resting, and snapping on your knees like a lot of people do, bouncing out to the bottom. Make sure there's a controlled negative, you know what I mean? And be progressive, like it is progressive overload. If you're doing, I'm just giving an example, if you're incline pressing 315 for 8 reps, either get 12 reps and keep 315, or put on more weight and get the same 8 reps. So it should be progressive that way. Logbooks are great, but you can't, there's nothing's engraved in stone, but the point is it's just being progressive with your lifts, and again, just paying attention to form. There's a lot of bouncing and everything like that. Some people do a barbell row, and there's no scapula flexion. There's no rounding out the scapula and pulling back. It's just snapping forward and stretching. So, the training should be very deliberate. A lot of people, they do like a lateral raise, and, from the first 10 inches off your hip, it's infraspinatus, supraspinatus. Why not just,
what's that?
Your rotators. Why not just keep your medial delt already engaged from the beginning, and then come down and have a controlled negative and start where you're 8 or 10 inches off the hip. So there should be continuous tension on these exercises too. There's a lot of just, haphazardly lifting just for the sake of trying to move a heavy object. You want to be in control of these reps.
Can I jump in here and add kind of to this question? I know that, when I was first introduced to DC training, it was something that I wanted to do, and I tried to do it, but I wasn't able to bring my volume down, nor was I able to bring my intensity up. And so I was stuck for a long time doing really high volume training. And in order to make more progress, the only way I knew how to increase my progress was by increasing the volume. And so my workouts got longer and longer, and obviously you can only do that for so long. So for somebody that's in that position, which I think is a real common position to be, when you're first learning about how to really work a muscle. What are some thoughts, guys and gals, about what you would suggest on how to start moving toward maybe more high intensity while keeping the volume, lower? How do you start tailoring that back? I can think of a few things that I've read off the Intense Muscle message board, but intense. Are you intense enough? But I wanted to ask you guys, and I knew we had a few people here that would be really good at taking that one.
I can give you a personal example because I was kind of in that camp, and what I find, with your high volume trainees, and obviously, how many sets can you take to mechanical failure, within a single training session before your performance just goes down? It's not many, and unless you have a bulletproof CNS, it's very, very small amount. So for me, I was at a point where I like to train very intensely, but I found that I just couldn't replicate it more than once or twice within a workout. So, we talk about intensity being, trained to failure, but that's going to be different. This is going to be different for everybody. And going back to the progressive overload bit, I would just simply increase intensity on a set to get more weight, like whatever, blackout, piss my pants, fall down, like whatever. Because I knew I had to get an extra rep or an extra, 2.5 on each side or whatever it was. And I ended up with a full-blown, adrenal insufficiency, terrible place. I was really rough, and so I had to bring my volume down. And so for me, that was a great learning experience, because what I'll do typically with a lot of people is I'll have them send me videos of their sets, things where I can look at visual cues, watch their sets, and 9 times out of 10, if I can get them to train one set within a session to that breaking point, they're going to realize, all right, this is where my mechanical failure, CNS failure, this is where I'm at. Now, can I actually replicate that? Was I actually doing 10 sets to failure or 15 sets to failure? Chances are no. And you can go back and look at a lot of literature too, and you'll see that we don't have to train to failure to create adaptions. There's a minimum threshold, and it's really not that high. We're not talking like a 3 out of 10, but we don't have to train 10 out of 10 on every set. And if people get this idea, they look at training sessions online and they see these sets that we post. Well, what led up to that? Where's the volume accumulated? Well, the volume was accumulated because my squats 5 plates aside. Well, I accumulated volume working up because it took me freaking 7 sets to get to the top set. There was my volume. I did a top set. I progressively overloaded. But, that's only one work set. Well, no, not really, because all those sets leading up to it met my minimum intensity threshold. So I was progressing. And as you get stronger, that's where you're going to end up. As you get stronger, you may find I'm doing less quote-unquote work sets because, it takes you so damn long to get up to your top weight, and it's so taxing. And then again, talking about mind-muscle connection, if your neural connection's great, you watch an advanced trainee, they're struggling from rep 1 to rep 10. They can feel it from rep 1 to rep 10 because that connection is so good. So normally, if I can get somebody to actually train to that point, whether they have to come train with me in person or I look at videos or whatever it is, that changes the whole perspective. And then I can run them through a purely low volume program that actually has only a few sets to mechanical failure, where their CNS can still recover and they can actually learn. Not that we have to stay there, we don't have to run pure DC, maybe we do, but they might settle in a more moderate volume range, and they can actually be productive and not just burn out from there.
So your question, in a broad sense, was about a question of psychology. You weren't ready psychologically to change from that higher volume to the higher intensity.
I guess it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
it kind of is.
The first thing that I always think of is people are going to be motivated by we're creatures of immediate gratification to a large part. People like to say bodybuilders are highly disciplined and we like to suffer and those sorts of things, but we do this because there's something we get out of it. And if your personality is one such that going in and training where your eyeballs are about to pop out of your head when you do those work sets. You don't like that, you don't dig it, that's not going to be the best way for you to train, because you're not going to do it repeatedly. It's not sustainable. It may be the best physiologically for you in a certain way, but that is really immaterial. So the first thing with a question like that is, do you like to train that way? Will you do that? Will you continue to do that? Or will you just end up sandbagging? Maybe you'll start off really hard. So if that's what you like and you're drawn to, then you set yourself up for success in that way. You go to the right kind of gym. You find a training partner who will make you his or her bitch, pardon my French. Someone who's going to just push you to the limit. You're competitive with them, obviously in a good way. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Someone who knows personal boundaries and personal space as well, knows when to touch and when not to touch, those sorts of things. Someone who knows when not to eat too much fiber. He cannot learn his lesson. He had 7 of those yesterday. He was telling me about all the GI issues he's having. Here he goes again. Stop it. But so that's really the big picture, and then you can start creating the program that works for you. And the thing that has come up so many times, we're talking about this with estrogen production, with ranges. There's so much biological interindividuality in terms of recovery and what maybe even the best stimulus would be. Not all muscle mass is going to grow in the same way for different individuals. There's studies, I have a whole talk I give on why you don't look like a pro. And there are people who are non-responders in terms of strength and muscle size and aerobic capacity, moderate responders and extreme responders. And there are probably, my guess is there are people who are going to respond better from a higher volume type of approach or higher rep range type of thing. We know that high rep training, especially to failure, produces muscle growth, and so does heavier loading types of training. So you have to figure out whether you're set up to try that kind of training in the first place. That was the thing with DC training. A lot of people just didn't want to do it. It's not fun for some people. I told this story, I told this on the podcast before. There was a guy who was a trainer at my gym, and he wanted to grow. He's always asking me questions. So I was restarting DC training. I hadn't done it for a little while. And we were doing the leg day, lower body day, and we did the heavy sets of squats, which are normally 2, by the way. Most people dropped it down to 1. Normally you do 2, actually. And then we did a Widowmaker. And I did my Widowmaker, and I got done. And about a minute afterwards, I kind of looked up at him, and I said, "What weight do you want?" He hadn't even gotten up. He's like, "I don't think I want to do that. I think I'm done." That was it. He left. That was the end. That we trained once. He didn't even do the Widowmaker. But he knew better, and I respected that. He didn't try to do a wimpy set. It just wasn't going to work for him. Yeah. So once you've got that figured out, then you can try to figure out where your best optimal stimulus will be in terms of volume versus effort. Maybe one go-to challenge set, as John Meadows calls them. Yeah. You do some higher volume stuff, make sure you hit the muscle, and then do one go-to set. Or maybe you just like to empty yourself, because it's therapeutic, into just a few more intense balls to the wall types of sets. So it's a matter of crafting it for the person. So just kind of put the ego aside and say, okay, do I really like to train like an idiot? Am I really an idiot, or I just want to look like I am because my ego makes me think, it'd be cooler if I trained like Dorian Yates. So those are my thoughts on that.
I have a question for those of us who are old enough to remember what biorhythms are.
Yeah, of course.
So for the past 10 years, So for the past 10 years, I've been going back and looking. I got a biorhythm app, and when I have those days in the gym, like, what the fuck just happened? And I go, let me look, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm at the bottom of my energy. Anybody here pay attention to biorhythm, and do you have any opinions on its validity at all? And when it comes to the physical strength cycle of the biorhythm,
I don't even know what those are
I
actually.
don't by definition either. I don't. Now I may know if you.
So biorhythm is a pseudoscience that starts at the moment you're born, and you have intellectual, emotional, and physical cycles. They run out of sync with each other. So there's times where they're all low. There's times where 1 is low and 3 are high, or 2 are high, and I never look at it in advance. I never look at it and think, I better not go in and try to train hard today. It says I'm at the bottom. But when I have those days in the gym where I expect it to really be strong, and I'm like, the first set is like, fuck, this weight is so heavy, what's going on? And then later on that day, I'm like, I wonder what my biorhythm was. And sure enough, the physical is down at the bottom.
So I wonder if I have confirmation bias that I can find with this biorhythm app.
Well, it would be confirmation bias if I could manipulate the app to give me the reading, but it's running from the day you're born. It's constantly doing these cycles.
Right.
I've talked to Wade Johnson about this, Coach Wade Johnson, the powerlifter, and I said to him, would you track it and see what happens? And he didn't want to be bothered with it, and I understand that. But I would just like somebody to look at biorhythm and say, from a training standpoint, it might be worthwhile setting up your training undulations based on this. Or does it not make any sense at all? Like I said, I look at it retrospectively. After I have a really shitty workout, I go, gee, I wonder what my biorhythm is like. Holy shit, it's like I'm the weakest I could be right now. No wonder. Why didn't I take advantage of that? Just go and do cardio that day.
Well, if you can analyze heart rate variability in terms of very acute and longer term diurnal cycles, or even longer than that. And of course, we know there are ovarian cycles, menstrual cycles, and uterine cycles in women. One of the things about Chinese medicine, for instance, I brought that up before, is that a lot of the food suggestions based on the experience of Chinese medical practitioners, basically the shaman woo-woo guys from the villages, was based on people of that genetic descent living in that bioregion during that time of our history. So they didn't have the type of pollutants that would get into those sorts of foods. They had different genetic proclivities. So there may be something to that. I don't know what the origins of biorhythms and how they even knew what the time periods were for those and how they would interact.
Like the physical is 28 days.
But how did they come up with 28 days? That matches.
This has been around since like the 4th or 5th century.
Right. But
biorhythms.
But was it based on a lunar cycle?
I don't know. I don't know.
So there may have been something in the origins of that at that time for those people
that doesn't play true any longer.
That has been so diluted that it and every once in a while it may match up when you check it in a confirmation bias type.
Like a broken clock is right twice a day.
There you go. There you go. It could be. So you just have to adapt that, and that's what it's done with Chinese medicine. These sort of things don't necessarily fit.
Right.
So there's all sorts of genetic proclivities and et cetera, et cetera. And if you look at people's just thinking of that sort of basic puts everyone into one box. Everyone doesn't fit in the same box.
Right.
Look at women's menstrual cycles. They can be all over the place.
Well, and that's a really good point.
That's a good average. 28 days is a good average, right?
So when you train women, do you take that into account? Do you? What's that?
You pretty much have to,
right,
to some degree. But it's funny because you're talking about these. I don't know how you're tracking. I understand that you're saying that this starts at birth or anything else, but I mean outside of an app that you have, I don't understand how I would know where I was physically or emotionally on an upswing or a downswing. I mean, I hear you saying like, some days you go in and you don't, you feel strong and you're not. And we've all had that happen. Then you go in and you're on very little sleep. You've had 3 meals instead of 5, and your stress is out of control, and you manage this just incredible workout where you PR everything. Right. And I've certainly had that as well. I'm sure everybody has. I don't know that there's, I tend to think that it's more of a psychological component that your brain, for whatever reason, gears down. I can think of workouts that I had when I was 19 years old, and I had been up all night in Clearwater, Florida on spring break, and at the Powerhouse in Clearwater there by the old Hooters. I don't even know if it's there anymore. Eddie, what's his face, used to train there. And just destroyed legs that day. And the fact that I can remember that 25 years later, is pretty crazy because it stands out because everything would have gone against the fact that would have been a good workout. I tend to think, though, that psychologically, because I was there, I knew where I was, I didn't want it to be wasted time, and my psyche, my mental focus just happened to take over. But to someone like yourself who's looking at these rhythms, that may just seem like, there has to be a reason for that. I don't know. I'm intrigued by it.
Biorhythms have been around for a long time, and there's apps out there. I would love for you to check it out. I would love.
I definitely will.
I would have you on the show after you've had a chance to assess it and just say bullshit, or you know what, this is interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely check it.
It's one of those things that's been around since like the 4th century, and it's still around.
So is religion.
Yeah, I know.
Ooh, damn, that was good. Yeah.
I was raised Catholic. I got a real big dose of.
I know.
I was born broken and all that bullshit. I'm good.
That's another podcast.
Yeah.
All right, we're running low on time. We actually did this thing, but we wanted to go around and kind of ask some predictions, right, Veej?
Yeah. Everyone's going to the Arnold, right? The bodybuilding part, right? You know, there's all kinds of parts to it now.
Did you guys know there's a bodybuilding show?
Yeah. Originally, believe it or not, it was a bodybuilding show. That's all it was.
Originally, it was just that and women's bodybuilding.
That's it. So,
the Miss International.
Miss International. That's right. They don't have that anymore, do they? Yeah.
You want to start with Dave?
Yeah.
Dave, what do you think is going to happen? Like, what's your top three?
I'll tell you, man. After seeing Rolly's face, really pulled in.
Yeah.
You know, everyone was saying 2 weeks ago. You know, he was like, they adjusted, and he looks like he'll be ridiculous. I actually have him as first, and I predict Bonac will be second, and I say it's Josh or Curry flip-flopping, for third, and
that's fair.
I think that's the top four right there.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Sarah, who you got?
I love Rolly, a lot. Just he's such a cool dude. And he came down, I used to work at the downtown gym that's Powerhouse now. It was Metro Fitness, it was World Gym.
Yeah.
When he won the amateur and turned pro.
Wow. You were there?
Yeah. So he used to train with Grandma, and Grandma would always bring her dudes down to that downtown gym. And she would come down and Sybil. She'd go down to the locker room, in the men's locker room, to check on her dudes. She didn't give a fuck. She'd just walk in there. She'd be like, woman in the house, woman in the house. Just walk through, right? Anyway, so that was, the first time that I had seen Rolly. She would also bring her guys to the front desk. I'd be like, oh, how your guys look this year, Grandma? And she'd be like, drop your pants. And they would drop their pants on command. It was great. She's a great lady. I was like,
she's a boss.
That wasn't what I was asking. So yeah, I like Rolly. I like Brandon Curry was up at the gym. I saw him the other day. I like Brandon Curry. I like to see how he looks underneath the clothes. Mm-hmm. And then the third, I think it'll be between Brandon and Rolly. Depends on who shows up in shape. I think if Rolly comes in like he did at the Arnold Australia last year, it's no contest. Mm-hmm. I think that, but Brandon is gonna challenge him for sure. And I don't really give a fuck about top three. It's going to be those two. That's what's up.
You're a top two kind of.
Carl, you've been paying attention to...
I don't know anything about anybody that's on that stage. In fact, we did an interview on Off Topic one day, and I said we did an interview back in the day on Off Topic, and the guy that we were interviewing was on the stage at the 212s.
I remember this.
And I was like, well, did you see Kevin English? And he was like, I was standing next to him. I was like, oh, I'm a fucking asshole. Yeah, I don't know anything about bodybuilding. I really don't. Yeah. For me, it's all about working out and staying healthy, and that's it.
He chooses Arnold. Arnold wins. That's good.
Yeah.
That's all right. The Delfs, who do you got over there? Who do you got for a top three?
I think top three, you got to go with Bonac. I think Josh Lenardowicz is going to get in there. Brandon Curry and Rolly. So yeah, I kind of agree with what Dave's saying. Yeah. So I think
nobody's obeying the laws today. We're going top twos, top fours.
I think Curry might take the 3 spot over Lenardowicz though. He's got kind of the more aesthetic shape here,
I'm super interested to see what Josh Lenardowicz looks like.
Yeah, and I think with more like the aesthetic shape, especially at the Arnold, they seem to like that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with you, actually. I'm not following the rules either, but I really want to see Luke Sando really bad.
Me too.
He looks fucking nuts.
Yeah. I'm excited.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Yep, I'm piggybacking off of that. I was telling you 2 days ago, and I'll say this now because I don't think the real technician will catch up to me before I catch my flight on Sunday. But I saw the picture, and I'm like, please, dear God, just let him be this tight in 2 days. Because it was
Luke Sando, right?
He looks incredible.
He does. He looks great, and he's dry and hard as shit, and he wants to fill out more. I hope that works. I'm sure they've got their plan, and I have a lot of respect.
I'm with you, though. I do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Go in like that.
You have to fill out more. I have Mike Francois winning, but I'm stuck in 1995.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good year.
It was a good year. Good year.
His calves would still win. Actually, Francois' calves would
Do you
still
think
win.
that so they'll favor the local? Is what he's saying?
Yeah.
He's a last minute entry.
No one's shown anything except for Luke, really. I mean, I haven't seen enough to have any guess as to who's on. I mean,
Curry,
Ruli's
we've
face
seen
always looks like Skeletor.
We've seen quite a bit of Curry on there. Well,
Yeah.
if you're on Instagram all the time.
Yeah, I talked to Luke at the gym when he was over there. I think Sunday it was, maybe or Monday, and he said, for the first time ever, he's not second guessing. He's not trying to do his own thing at all. He's doing exactly what he's told. And he's got Chris Aceto, probably the best coach of all time. And Chris has worked with him previously, so there's not a whole lot to figure out, except just make it all happen. Just do it. So I love to see Luke, just put it together.
Me too.
2 years ago, Luke was here.
Yep.
And we
That's
met.
right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We have
I'll
photos.
I'll never forget that. Yeah, I think of that
Good
fondly.
times,
Yeah. I won't stroke you like Ken was earlier.
Please
I
don't.
promise. Yeah, don't worry. And I was sitting with Jordan Peters, good buddy of Luke. Jordan had helped coach him, and Luke had all the size he needed at that time.
Oh, yeah.
We
For
didn't
sure.
know.
For sure.
The size was there, just wasn't conditioned.
Right.
Now he's conditioned. So I'd love to see. I want to see how that matches up.
Yeah.
So he's like 260, something like that. And he's like
plenty.
5'8".
It's enough.
Yeah, I think that'll do. That's like Dorian Yates level size.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, it
with
really is.
with a back width that's quite similar from the front, anyways.
And glutes that look, even Boston Lloyd was. I think I saw the Instagram thing. But even Boston Lloyd was jealous.
Oh yeah,
yeah. They were. Yeah, Boston Lloyd was giving him shit. So, and Luke just responded with a glute shot that really silenced him.
Yeah, just shut him up.
Nice.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Impossible.
Austin, who you got?
Oh man.
Just you know what? No rules. No rules.
No rules.
Yeah.
Should I just go from 10 down?
Yeah.
I think Ruley probably would be the clear favorite, assuming he looks anything like he did last year. The waist issue is completely under control now, so I mean, it's not really.
Yeah.
You can't even. There's not really even a knock on him at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, he's enormous. So I'd probably have him first, and William Bonnick second, and that's just because I know he'll be in shape. I can't imagine he'll be off. And then pound for pound, he's so packed dense. Third's going to be the interesting one. I think third place will probably really be the toss-up. Josh, you have Josh, Brandon, and I mean even Luke could definitely hop in there. My gut tells me that Luke won't get third yet, but I have a feeling that he will be in that first call out and at least get a look.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think he'll get a look, and then I think he'll be there pretty soon. But for third, I'd probably have to say, if I was betting on it, I'd say Brandon would beat Lenardowicz just on purely because his shape and aesthetics. Yeah. Even though Josh is huge, I mean, I think they interviewed. I think they said he was almost 280. That's crazy. He's a little bit taller.
That's not an exaggeration. He really is that heavy.
Yeah, and he was a little bit taller than some of the other guys still, but I mean, that's crazy.
What about you, friend?
Scott's going to the top six.
I really do want to see Brandon Curry win it. I really would like to see that a lot. Because like I've said on the shows, I've followed him for a long time, since before he turned pro. I've got a couple of muscular development magazines from when he was at the national level. Mm-hmm. And then, I knew that he was capable of doing what he's doing now, but I hadn't seen it. And so it was like this itch in my brain that wasn't being scratched. And now to see him doing what he's doing, it's like seeing that finished piece of artwork. It just feels so satisfying to me to see that. And I really hope that he can be rewarded with it. I saw a picture of his that his coach posted either this morning or yesterday, and his glutes are there's angles. There's angles to
ridges.
Yeah, ridges to the muscle. There's definite lines, that intersect into lines that it's all sharp angles on his body right now. And I think that they needed to fill him out a little bit more was the plan. But he just has such cool shape, and with the mass that he's added, I would like to see him do. Now, will he do it? I don't know. Especially after listening to you guys talk about everybody else. Like you said, Austin. Will they allow Luke in? Yet I don't know. I think that he'll get a good look though, for sure. There's no question on that. So. Yeah. I feel like this is not the Olympia, so I don't think it's one of those situations where you're going to have to necessarily knock Bonnick out
if Bonik was Mr. Olympia, that's what we're going into, then it would be a lock, where like he would have to come in off. I don't think that the Arnold Classic is like that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that, any given day, things could change.
There's like 6 or 7 names in this show that could just
anybody,
if they come in on, although the other guys are off, any one of those guys can take it.
Anybody we haven't mentioned yet in this in the mix here?
I'm going to say it. I like Cedric. I'm just gonna throw the wild card out there. Not to win. I'm just saying I like him.
Those guys saw Cedric on the plane.
Nice.
Right
What'd you think? Oh yeah. yeah. He had a shirt on. Are you sure that was Cedric? No, I just like Cedric. I just like him. So.
Want to go in that direction? There's also Akeem to think about.
Akeem, yeah. Let's see what he looks like.
Assuming he's in shape. I mean, his last 2 shows, he was way lighter and he looks obviously better when he's lighter.
Oh, for sure he does.
So I mean, if he were somehow in like ridiculous condition, that's a wild card right there. But Akeem would have to be like seriously peeled and just cored out ripped to do top 3-ish.
Yeah, it's hard to predict something for Akeem. He's just not real consistent. But do look forward to watching him walk across a stage. He is like watching a bull walk.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Yeah.
So who did I say then? I said, I think Brandon, and I do think that Josh is going to be right up there, and Bonik. And I would love to see Rolly do really well. I don't know. I mean, could Rolly win it? I think that would be kick-ass. He looked
He can.
He looked so crazy last year here. He looked like a genetic anomaly.
Yeah.
Like nothing else that was on that stage. He didn't resemble it. He looked like a different. I'm not going to say different species.
He was an alien.
But like,
he was alien.
You see like a deer from one country, and then you see a deer from. He was like it's still a human being, but just like a different kind of human.
Yeah. Keep in mind though, at the Olympia, Rolly placed ahead of William.
True. Yeah, that's very true.
That's true.
That's a great point. And he brought it in, so he was gigantic here, and then he brought it in tighter and looked even more aesthetic at the Olympia.
Yeah, so I mean, if he's 85% of the Olympia with being dry, then it's going to be around.
Yeah, I could see that. So I could see him winning it. I could definitely see Bonik winning, or I could see. I'm not going to say Cedric though, but I will say Brandon Curry.
Listen, I didn't say Cedric will win jack shit. I said I like Cedric.
Oh, I thought you were. I thought you were
as
saying,
a bodybuilder. I like Cedric. Yeah.
We saw him win, didn't we?
Kind of like,
we saw him win.
Yes,
a
we
few years
did.
back.
Yes, we did.
Here.
Yeah. See, there you go.
Yeah.
So he's a past winner. It could happen.
That ushered
weirder
in
stuff has happened.
That when that happened.
Yeah, and Arnold likes Cedric. That's right.
And when that happened, that's when everybody started talking about the new aesthetic, the tight waist.
That's true. Yeah.
So I could see it.
Yeah.
What about besides Mike Francois? Who else is missing from this lineup? Because I was just thinking, about last year how Dexter pushed William so hard last year. This is the first year Dexter hasn't competed in the Arnold Classic in
forever.
A while. Yeah.
In like 30 years.
Are they still still judging the posing round?
I don't know.
Like they did that year, because they had the Kai and
that's right.
Kai and Cedric year
right.
where there was the posing round. Are they still doing that?
I don't know.
All it means that they're emphasizing that round.
Like 10 or 15% or something.
I
like
think
that.
there's more like at this show. There's more emphasis on the posing round.
Can Rolly pose worth a shit?
He can pose.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's good.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's good.
I don't know.
He's good. Yeah. They're all good.
He has good gut control right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, what do you say, man? Should we let everybody go?
You didn't tell me. You just said Cedric, but you didn't think he's going to win.
What else can I add?
Who's going to win?
I don't know who's going to win, man. Any one of those guys can win. I want to see good. Charles Dixon, 212. There you go.
Mike Clay gave us a bunch of stuff, so we had a set of tickets, VIP tickets, literally for everything, for all the shows. And we had a couple tickets for breakfast with Arnold. That'd be awesome, man. I got to tell you, our listeners were so grateful too. They sent me messages. They sent Mike Clay messages, because Mike Clay was the one, like I said, who put this, all together. He gave us the tickets, and it was cool, man, because these guys were all really grateful for having won.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And how could they not, man? What a great prize! A couple of great prize bundles there for sure. I mean, we really Mike Clay made a couple of people's days. That's like
maybe
that shit
years.
Yeah, years, man. That's like a lifetime thing. Nobody just buys tickets to have lunch with Arnold.
Right.
You know?
You can't.
No, it didn't. I mean, we got backstage and they told us shut the fuck up when he's talking, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah. So the fact that you could, have lunch with Arnold is a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But it's good, man. It's good. No, the prize packages were great, and Mike Clay so generous. It's just beautiful. And these guys were so appreciative. You could tell when they won. You can hear it in their voices. It was really cool.
Oh yeah.
So we got 47 minutes.
Yeah.
You guys are going. It's just right up the stairs, basically, from here up the escalator. Sarah, the lovely Sarah Bruce.
We picking a winner? Is that what's going on?
What are we gonna pick first? We've got giveaway for
a pair of luncheon, a pair of tickets, full spectrum tickets, but no luncheon.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Okay. What are we doing first, Sarah?
You tell me.
Yeah,
You're the boss.
You're the boss.
Listen,
you're the boss of the raffle.
I'm following.
This is the lunch one.
Okay.
With Arnold.
Thank you, Vijay.
The lunch with Arnold. This is a hard ticket right here, I feel like. All right. We got Gabe V. Gabe.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah. Woo.
He's dressed the part, too. It's good.
Perfect.
Oh, man.
Absolutely,
You're
man.
welcome, man.
Thank
Thanks
you for
coming.
joining us.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
I wonder, there's definitely more people in this room than we have listeners to our show. So
That about tops it up for us, too. So
Yeah, this is it. This is everybody we have.
So now we're doing
Except for my mom. She's not here.
Now we're doing the whole package except for the luncheon.
Right. The trip
and the trip to Tahiti.
That's
right.
next year.
Yeah. No, that's this year. It's on Scott.
Trip to
it's on
Tahiti.
there.
Everybody gets a trip to Tahiti.
All right.
Yeah.
It's Shannon Hildroth.
Yay.
Come on.
All right.
She doesn't. You don't.
She's sending her.
You don't have to come
boyfriend,
up. I'll give them to you afterward.
Husband as the delegates.
Do we have them?
I've got them. I'll give them to you afterward.
They're tucked away somewhere very safe.
Tricking people to come up here like that. Come on.
That's it. Congratulations to our winners.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
All right. So how do we wrap this thing up, Veej?
For Bodybuilding Nerds Radio and this wonderful panel of people that have joined us today, I bid you adieu.
Thanks, guys.
Dude, that was so cool. And once it finally came together, man, I was just so happy that we did it.
Yeah. What was it? What a great time. That shit we'll remember forever. It's like we'll record Bodybuilding Nerds Radio every week. But I couldn't remember jack shit of what I said last week. You know what I mean?
Right.
But this podcast event was so cool that it's like one of those recordings that I'll always remember.
I totally agree, man. And thank you for making it out. I know you're not like the biggest fan of crowds. You don't like hanging out for long, but man, this was so cool, and it wouldn't have been the same if you weren't there with me.
Well, yeah, it takes two, right? I mean, we got to we're a team. We got to do this. We got to do this together to make it real fun. I think
you signed up, and now you got to meet your contractual obligations.
Sure, that's basically yes, that was the case. Yeah. I don't want to forfeit my my capital gains. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was a good time, man, and we had a great time, and everybody had a great time, and what a great weekend all together, man. It was probably the best Arnold I've ever had.
I would totally agree with that, and definitely, as we mentioned in the start, it was exceptionally fun because we got to do this, and we got to meet a good number of listeners. I thought that it came together really well, and it would not have been the same if it was just me and you sitting in a room together doing this. So it's been great, man, that we could get everybody to come together for this event.
Absolutely. Hey, for Bodybuilding Nerds Radio and Advices Radio Network and Scott McNally and Michael Clay and the entire panel of people that came out with us and all the people that were sitting in the audience, I bid you adieu.
See you guys.